This is FinTech Futures at Sibos, and I'm joined by Ian Povey of NatWest. Ian, thank you so much for taking the time out to speak with us.
No worries, thank you.
To get started, we'd like to give us a quick introduction to yourself and your role at NatWest.
Yes, I'm the CIO of Payments Technology for NatWest Group, which basically means that I look after all of the payment technology for all the clearing streams end to end, both from a change perspective and also the run, so making sure we maintain the operational resilience for our customers and businesses across the UK.
Excellent, excellent. And you're here to discuss payments transformation and innovations in the space as well this week. So to get started then, I mean, what are some of the key trends then in digital payments at the moment?
Yeah, and it's a highly relevant question for Sibos itself, but even beyond this event, because payments themselves are increasing in velocity. And when we look at the data that's within the payment messages as well, so we come back into things like standards, these trends, as we look at the acceleration of volume and also the proliferation of options, are forcing a real change in the technologies, the architecture, but also the business operations processes for customers, and making sure that they have that positive digital experience at the front end, whether it be on their cell phone or whether that be on a laptop or device in work even. So that's one basis for the trend. But then you get into the more front-end experiences and seeing the optionality that's being provided, be it for payments being accepted by merchants, so the likes of now turning the mobile phone into a device as a point of sale on glass. And whilst that's an evolution, and we've seen some of these trends earlier in the last decade even, it's basically taking us to a point where payments are universal wherever you are and with whoever you're with. And that's going to be a very interesting dynamic to unfold over the next few years. But I think the real thing that we need to not lose sight of is what is the data agenda that is really humming through payments, and what that will unlock in the future for other opportunities and offerings that either secure payments for customers and protect them, through to providing value-added services that are more in the context of the experience that a consumer and or business is in.
Excellent. Are there any use cases and practical applications as well in the payment space that have really caught your eye at the moment?
Yeah, there's a couple that probably don't get as much visibility, but I'm one that looks across all of the different streams. So, in the context of more consumer retail payments, what I mentioned about being able to make a payment by tapping another person's cell phone is one clear advantage, and obviously it's going to help reduce the cost for the industry and particularly for smaller businesses as well. But then at the other end of the spectrum, we see companies like PexaPay, who had their origins in Australia but are now in the UK. The seventh connection to the Bank of England, but it's a dedicated payment network for a particular asset class, in this case property. So looking at the manual processes in property settlement and exchange, and being able to bring that into a combined single payment message. So those types of developments do catch my eye, because they're tangible, and that also demonstrates what we can be doing with new message standards, and also just thinking a bit more laterally about the processes that surround payments and not just the payment itself.
I mean, on that front as well, how have customer expectations of payments changed recently, and especially given the rate of change in tech, but also, given the proliferation of the companies and different offerings that they can go from there?
Yeah, and first point there is we're all customers of payments, and we need to, particularly in my role and my team as well, it's about encouraging us to just pause and think of that experience we're actually having personally. But I talk about the Amazon effect, and also obviously the time through COVID, there's been a lot of re-education of digital technologies for people to be used and become comfortable with. And that we're seeing through QR codes on the one hand, which we never thought would take off in sort of more Western countries and so on. But equally, it's really that expectation of transparency of the payment. I know where it is and that's been successful, that I'm protected when I make that payment, and that I can do it whenever I want. And that's really been driven by the ability to just click and have it delivered.
With the growing number of options available now, what kind of trends are you seeing when it comes to customers and how they're choosing to pay now, in both individual customers but also businesses as well?
Convenience starts with this one, and I think sometimes convenience is psychologically stronger than even whether they trust the party in the first instance, and I'm talking particularly at the front end. And that's where the banking industry and incumbents more broadly need to not ignore, and we're not. To be a digital champion, you need to be learning from everybody. and seeing how customers engage with these other platforms, whether it be for cross-border payments, whether it be for domestic business to customer type interactions. So with those types of things, we need to start to encourage trust to come into the model, because otherwise we start to see the trends in fraud, and that becomes a negative outcome for everybody at the end of the day. So it is really looking at it in that lens that we need to continue to focus on.
Excellent. And you mentioned fraud there. I mean, certain types of payment, for APP fraud particularly, has been a major concern now for a while. What can banks be doing more of to tackle that?
I think banks are doing a lot, to be fair, and customer protection is a core part of what we do. It's back to that trust point that I made earlier, and whether it be responding to ensuring that we compensate customers if they are a victim of fraud, but also continuing to dial up how we can support and educate and give them that visibility of things which may entrap them, be it on social platforms or otherwise, where a lot of this fraud is originating, and really trying to also work with the industry itself, again, the social platforms and those big techs, to ensure that they see their own accountability as part of that initiator of the experience through to the end-to-end and where the funds come out of the bank account itself. And that is going to be a long piece of work, because payments is not an island and there's lots of stakeholders in that dynamic. But we've all got to work together to actually close that down. There is no competition in fraud.
Excellent. And you mentioned big tech there as well. I mean, NatWest was one of the banks to partner with Apple for tap to pay recently as well. I mean, can you tell us a little bit more about that, and I guess big tech's foray into the payment space as well, and what your thoughts are about that?
And this is where partnership is key, and we really need to continue to recognise where the strengths lie in organisations, and where the opportunities also come to sort of test and learn with another experience, and being able to experiment even with a partnership or experiment within the organisation, as we do with various hackathons and the like, gives us that ability to ensure that we are meeting the needs of our customers, be they individuals, business, or even government. And a lot of that will continue to be through partnerships. We can't be spread so thin to be able to solve for all, particularly with this increase in optionality that's occurring. And let's be fair, I mean, there's some great user experiences out there for people, and we need to remain and will remain the backbone of those experiences. But if we can integrate that in further into the digital experience with the bank, and looking at how we continue to use the data, again, to protect the customer, but also to look at what else could be useful for them, that's the context that we need to continue to work on.
Excellent, excellent. And just to finish off, I mean, how do you see the payment space evolving then in maybe the near-term future? Have you got anything else at NatWest that's in the pipeline you can talk about?
I mean, obviously the first topic we need to lean in on there is things like CBDC and the evolution and the interlinking that will need to occur, and that's certainly something which we continue to experiment with, but also plan from an architectural standpoint. And whilst I always talk about the technology side, I always reinforce and remind people that this is about product and proposition and process as well. And so all those evolutions that are definitely going to happen need to be designed for and catered for in the construct of the bank as it is today. But also recognising that these evolutions of product and capabilities are not for everyone. So it's again looking at understanding who's going to get the value and at what time horizon that's going to occur. So that's one angle. I think the other one, which is probably more topical from a Sibos standpoint, or equally topical, is what do we do with the foundations of ISO 222? Because there's a lot of work still to look at what are the opportunities to exploit that, be it commercially or otherwise, how we continue to harmonise the standards between domestic networks and the cross-border networks, so that we ensure that, again, all supports that evolution of payments and removes that friction, but not to the extent that we actually also encourage fraud. So it's getting that balance, and that's something which is a near-term problem we need to solve for as well.
Excellent, excellent. Well, thank you so much again, Ian, for taking the time out to speak with us. It's been a pleasure.
No worries. Thank you very much.
Thank you.